Welcome everybody to class 4 of the West Adams Cert program, what we're calling Prepare West Adams. You can learn more about our program on preparewestadams.org. Today we have a very exciting setup for you on how to learn radio operations, right? When things go down during disasters and regular communications are not available, what do we do next? Obviously, this is a Zoom meeting, so we can't get super hands-on with our radios, but we are going to do a demonstration. And we are at the end of the program going to give you some exciting opportunities to get involved in the neighborhood, hands-on, see, touch, feel, and practice with all the theory that we're going to go through today. So it's going to be a very exciting program. We're going to go through a lot of information. Please drop your questions into the chat. As always, we will have somebody from the CERT team, this time Patrick Botts-Forbes. Patrick, good to see you again. Answering questions in the chat, and we will have time for Q&A at the end. So this is a really exciting topic, and we hope everybody enjoys what we learned today. I just want to give a quick shout out to the fact that neighborhood council elections are on the horizon, actually happening right now. So folks, what that looks like is requesting your ballot by this coming Tuesday, the 18th. Request your ballot online. And once you've received your ballot in the mail, you will want to postmark it by the following Tuesday, the 25th. So I'm going to drop into the chat the link into where to request your ballot. And this link will give you all the information you need. Hopefully that comes across in the chat properly. Yep. Go ahead and click that. It'll take you to the city clerk's website. And once you're in this website, there's a portal to receive your vote by mail application. There's instructions on how to fill it out, and you'll be off to the races. So folks, thanks for your participation today. That's it for housekeeping. I want to kick it over to our man of the hour, Philip, over at Cert, Battalion 18. And Phil, do you want to take us into the presentation?
All right, here we go. Let me get my screen sharing thing going here. That isn't a very funny screen there, but here we go. Are you guys seeing that?
Okay. Yep, looks good.
All right. Well, this is a screen that our friend Lise put together. Welcome to two-way radio operations, everybody. Module 4 of the NTP program that's been going on here in West Adams. I like to think of this presentation actually as a two-way radio 101 because it's really focused towards people who haven't really had any experience at all or very little experience with two-way radios. And so I can see by the group here there's a number of experts already, so you guys can help me when they start coming in with the heavy questions. I imagine the previous 3 NTP modules have already made this point, but it's important to keep this in mind as we prepare and practice for the time when we may actually lose these services. After the big one, or really any large-scale citywide disaster, we may be on our own for quite some time, whether it's 3 days, 3 weeks, or more, hopefully not. It's important that we've prepared to fend for ourselves. And as our professional first responders are out there assessing the state of the city and dealing with much bigger problems than ours, hopefully, we do need to be able to stay connected and to communicate our needs and the needs of our neighbors. So let's just take a quick look at, these are just a few things that we have available to us all the time, for the most part. I don't want to really spend a lot of time discussing each one, but if you want to later, we can check out anything there that looks interesting. But if you scan through these, we can talk about each one. We can, for the most part, all of these things are vulnerable in one way or another. It's possible that we could be reduced to passing paper messages in person, depending on our preparation. And so that's one reason that it would be good to add some yellow tabs into your Go kits and some pencils. But let's investigate that possibility. Imagine we're down to pen and paper in this situation. This is Ray during the 1994 Northridge earthquake. He's probably not too excited about running down to the end of that street to give his friend a message and bring one back to his wife the other direction. Also, same earthquake, same day, the I-10 actually collapsed not very far west of the north corner of the West Adams neighborhood district. So probably some of you were around for that. So on this Google map here, that's the outline in green of the West Adams Neighborhood Council. And according to Google, their ruler, it's 2.3 miles from one corner to the other from up where that where the collapse happened. Now, if you had a great runner, like a world-class runner, you would expect him to be able to make it down to the south east corner in about 9 minutes, let's say. That would be extremely fast. He could you know, get his uncle to stop thinking about getting on the freeway or whatever. Now, if he had to run back, that's you know, 4.5 miles. If he had other messages to deliver, needless to say, after some time, your sneaker net, so to speak, is going to slow down and eventually be exhausted. Now, if this were me, that would take about 1/4 mile, and I'd be finished. But you'll be better off taking a hint from this radio operator here, which reminded me of a class I once took on survival techniques for a successful shelter-in-place emergency. One of the rules was conserve your energy. Running around the neighborhood, or in our instructor's example, building a structure of branches and logs instead of just stretching out your lightweight tarp, requires a lot more energy. And because of that, it requires a lot more calories and water, which may be in short supply. So we may be walking our blocks, assessing our local situation after we've taken care of ourselves and our families, but we shouldn't need to be running around like Marathon Man, passing messages around. Oh, and I should mention radio waves. They travel at the speed of light. So two-way radios to the rescue here. When other means of communication have all failed, these battery-powered radios will allow us to assess our neighborhood situations and to inform others even beyond our immediate location. And if we organize, we can even reach our first responders and vice versa. So you're probably familiar with walkie-talkies as recreational radios or camping radios, you know, picnics, playing around with the radios. And you've seen two-way radios, I'm sure, being used in all sorts of small businesses, markets, valet services, construction sites, all of that kind of thing. But the other times you see two-way radios, for example, the fire department, they use two-way radios all the time as well. Now, they use frequencies that aren't available to us, but we can listen to them and we can learn a lot from them in terms of emergency communication, because the way they communicate differs quite a bit from the way we might communicate on a family picnic or something. So let's get into the kind of radio that when you're first getting into it, these FRS radios are most likely the first kind of radio you're going to practice with and actually use later. I still use mine. They're often sold in pairs and are available at big box stores and on Amazon as well. One thing you should do as you're going through looking at all the ads, ignore it when they say that they can go 30 miles or 40 miles. That's not the case in reality. Maybe in a test lab they managed it, I don't know. But your actual range will depend largely on your line of sight to the other radio you're trying to reach, meaning how clear is that path, whether it be obstacles or interference. They are two-way handheld radios. They each have 22 channels, and these FCC approved radios are all the same in terms of the channels they have. If you, on this one, it looks like it's set to channel 6 there. If you have another radio, even from another manufacturer, and set it to channel 6, you guys can talk to each other. You don't even have to think about the actual frequency you're using. The antennas on them are fixed, meaning you can't unscrew them and put something else on. But these things are good for block-to-block communication, even though on the FRS radios they're limited to 2 watts. If we organize ourselves, you can move information from block to block to block, on up the chain to the LAFD or some other agency. No license is required. No test is required, and they require very little training, and we can provide that for you. Now, a little step up from an FRS radio, you'll see people using these as well in our groups when we train. They have the same 22 channels. The FCC approved ones, channel 1 on a FRS radio is going to be the same thing as channel 1 on a GMRS radio, so they can talk to each other, no problem. The difference is that these GMRS radios are allowed to be more powerful in terms of their transmitting wattage. On these handhelds, they're typically around 5 watts. Channels 1 through 7 are typically 5-watt channels. They also have the low-watt channels that the FRS have that are 8 through 14. They're okay. They'd save your battery if they work for you. But on the GMRS upper channels, 15 through 22, if you get a mobile version of the GMRS radio, it's allowed to transmit at 50 watts, which is a significant boost there. There's no test, which is great. Unfortunately, there is a license required. Now, you have to do that through the FCC. You can do it online. It's not that complicated. Currently, the license is $70 for 10 years. They give you a call sign when you get your license. And the license is actually good for everyone in your family. So if you do the math, it's actually pretty affordable. One thing to know, the FCC has proposed lowering that fee to $35, but currently I still, last time I checked, the Congress hasn't approved it, so it's still $70, but could go down to $35 pretty soon. The third kind of radio that you'll see a lot when we're drilling are ham radios. Now, these are quite different. You know, the FRS and GMRS are kind of similar with differences. Oh, did I mention repeaters? The GMRS radios also have 8 repeater channels. It's written up there somewhere, and that actually really improves your range as well. FRS radios do not have access to repeaters. So ham radios, I won't spend much time on them. We could spend all day on them. Every radio is kind of unto itself in terms of how it's programmed. Channel or memory location 1 on one radio isn't necessarily the same as on another. There's a lot of different frequencies to choose from depending on your level of expertise. There are numerous antenna types, towers, repeaters all over the mountains, much greater range. They do require a test, which for most people will require some study. And usually the test costs you like between $5 and $15. Currently there's no license fee from the FCC, but as they're planning on lowering it for the GMRS radios, they're planning on bumping the ham licenses up to $35. They're still good for 10 years, but only one person at a time. So one license, one person. All right, so let's look back here, back to the FRS radios. Like I said,
so can I weigh in one thing about the commercial radios that we're going to be using?
go ahead, Patrick.
So we're also going to be including commercial radios as we start to build out neighborhood team program and our Cert staging area kits. These are kind of in between Frs Radio, Gmrs, and ham radio, in that they're a little bit more powerful. They're able to use repeaters, but they don't require you to have a license. We have the license, and it's good for the entire LA basin. And we'll be talking more about these radios, but as you see some of our documentation, it will start to talk about commercial radios. So I don't want you to be confused and not know what that is. And I'll talk a little bit more about it after Phil's presentation.
Okay, so yeah, I didn't put that particular thing in here with the understanding that those commercial radios will probably most likely be in our caches for deployment purposes rather than individuals, but you know, Patrick knows way more about it than I do, so we'll check that out. The FRS radio that is great to start with. We talked about the fact that the antenna does not come off. There is an accessory port on the side of it, and that allows you to put an external earpiece or a speaker mic. Somewhere I had a speaker mic around here, but oh, here we go. I don't know if you can see this. I can't see myself on the screen, so speaker mic. That way you could put your radio, actual radio clip to your belt, and you wouldn't have to like try to talk into the microphone that's built into the radio itself, which is right there. You got a speaker built in. There's a USB port on this radio that allows you to plug it into a USB power supply to charge it up, which is nice. A lot of the older FRS radios don't have that, which then will require a, can you see this? A cradle that you put the radio in to charge it up with. But the USB port is handy. You have control panels on the front to set the channel and some other settings. The most important maybe button on the whole thing is the PTT. Whoops, sorry about that. The PTT button stands for push to talk, and you hold that button in order to transmit. And then on the top there, on the other side of the antenna, you've got, on this radio, you've got a knob that you turn just a little bit to turn the radio on, and then if you keep turning it, it makes the speaker louder on the front of the radio. It doesn't change your transmission power, but it changes how loud it is in case you need a boost in a loud environment. So those are the main parts that you need to even know about on an FRS radio. On the back, that's the same radio. Inside the radio is a rechargeable battery pack, which is what gets charged when you plug in USB, for example. However, if it goes dead on you in the field and you don't have a spare with you, you can put AA batteries in the back of the radio. So in addition to putting some pad of paper and pencil in your Go kit for the sneaker net, you might put some AA batteries in your kit as well. Now, Patrick did mention the commercial radio. PowerWorks sells what's really a commercial radio as a GMRS radio called the Terra. And I just put this up here just to show you the difference between what an FRS radio might look like. The removable antenna we talked about. What's great about a removable antenna is that if you're in a car, you can take the one that comes with the radio off and hook it up to an antenna that's mounted on top of your car. Or you could hook it up to an antenna that's mounted on top of your roof. And those things give you much better range and better connection with other radios. So that's one of the big advantages of them. Let's see, I don't really want to spend a whole lot more time on that. The programming on these radios, even though it's technically a commercial radio, meaning it could get programmed with other frequencies other than GMRS, We program them for people if they get these terras to be legitimate FRS, GMRS radios, with meaning the same frequencies as the FRS. So you can talk to both. So in addition to the actual radios comes how to use them in a situation, how to use them in a team. And each neighborhood will have plans that are basically built around their team and their situation, their neighborhood situation. The reason you want to have a plan is because without one, you'll have people clamoring all over the airwaves, not knowing what channels to be on, stepping on each other, a total chaos. So a plan is important just to keep things organized. Neighborhood communication, for one thing, should be pretty simple. We don't want a plan that is so complicated and written in stone that you can't quickly adapt it, alter it, depending on who shows up. Maybe a lot of people show up, maybe hardly anybody shows up for a while, you know. So it should be fairly simple and understood by all the team members. For the newest member of the team, we get a question a lot, what do I do now that I have this radio? Well, the first thing you might do as a new team member in a situation, let's say the earthquake just happened, and you grab your radio, just turn it on and listen for the rest of your team to come on, your team leaders, that sort of thing. Of course, if you need help, you should call out to your team. But yeah, just keep it simple. Tailor to your area, depending on the number of members on your radio team and their locations. In addition to the type of obstacles you have, plans will differ neighborhood to neighborhood. Some neighborhoods are kind of flat and spread out without a whole lot of buildings and stuff. Some are very urban with very tall buildings. Hills are a major obstacle. So, some neighborhoods, radio to radio communication will be simple. And some will require relays or maybe even repeaters in order to be able to stretch across. So the object is to get all of that sort of stuff organized so that you can share between yourselves and also with outside agencies. Now, predetermined protocols, what we're talking about there is your neighborhood team will organize these things and hopefully be ready for it when something real happens. The basic number one thing is, we were talking about a second ago, when do you turn the radio on? Well, for sure we turn the radio on when the shaking stops after a major earthquake. You want to get to it as soon as you can after you make sure you're okay and your family is okay, maybe even as you're doing that. You get your radio turned on, and but what frequency or channel do you put it on? That's another thing that you have already decided ahead of time. Your team knows about that. Other situations get a little trickier, like how about when the power goes out for what seems like a long time? Do you turn the radio on for that? Maybe the cell phone stopped working. If the smoke you're looking at out the window looks kind of close, maybe you have a plan in conjunction with your neighborhood watch program. I have heard of groups that keep the radios on 24/7, but really it's up to your team, you and your team, to decide these concepts and just everybody understand what they are. One thing you can consider is a calling tree. It's some kind of calling tree that allows you to alert the whole group to get on the radio. Because, in a lot of emergencies, all those forms of communications we looked at there briefly, they won't always all be gone. So use them. Alert your calling tree to the fact that on the west side of West Adams, all the power's out. But on the east side, nobody even knows that because they're sitting there watching TV, everything's fine. Your team leaders may be out of the neighborhood and not aware of some situation that has come up. So you and your team have lots to consider, but you'll come up with with plans for that sort of thing. So, and we mentioned everybody definitely should know what channels to go to and have a backup channel. Your primary channel might be covered in extraneous traffic that's unusual, but there all of a sudden. You may have static all over it, whatever. You would switch to your backup channel. Sometimes you might even have to flip around and find another channel, but usually, having a main one and a backup is fine. There's also some common principles and techniques that plans share citywide, not just in your neighborhood. For example, when it comes to deployment techniques, each neighborhood needs to establish an assembly area and a staging area, and everybody on your team should know where those are. Cert deployment protocols are standard throughout the city. You saw a bit of that last month in the search and rescue module. And as you work with your radio team, or if you take a Cert class, you'll learn more about all of that stuff as you go along. In terms of city-wide or even countrywide on all radio platforms, there's a couple of concepts that come in to play as well. One of them we know as the 5 Ws, and the other one is the concept of net control. The 5 Ws. Who are you calling? Who are you? Where are you? What do you have? And what do you need? These are the 5 main things that we want to communicate as efficiently and clearly as possible. We want to keep our messages from using up a lot of airspace, and we also want to make sure that what you're saying and who you're trying to reach are clear. So the first 2 are maybe almost as important as the others. The order that you say them in. Who are you calling, and who are you? The reason you call the person that you're calling first is because that person might be busy, although you can't tell. Might be very busy. Either he's doing something, with paperwork and stuff, or he may be speaking with someone already, but you can't hear that other person. So if you happen to, grab your radio to call him, and he's listening to what somebody's saying to him, but you can't hear that person, you don't want to just jump on the air and start, spewing out a big long message on top of it. It causes all kinds of chaos, interference, etc. So it's important to first obviously listen to see if you can hear something. But even if you can't before you transmit, you want to just say who you're calling and who you are. You catch his attention by saying his name first. So for an example, if I was Team Alpha and I'm calling staging, I would say, staging, this is Team Alpha. And then I would wait. The waiting is important, and I'm kind of wondering why there aren't 6 Ws. But anyway, waiting is important because, see, if he was talking to somebody that you can't hear or listening to somebody that you can't hear, if you just say staging, this is Team Alpha, you're not really causing too big of a problem. And typically, if that actually is happening, staging will come back and say, Team Alpha, stand by, or something like that. Or he might not even hear you, but if he doesn't hear you after a while, you're going to want to do it again. Staging, this is Team Alpha. But you're going to wait to be acknowledged. Once you are acknowledged, staging says, Team Alpha, go. That's when you start delivering your message. And you're first going to want to tell them where you are, because they may start thinking about who they have available and how to get to you before you even finish your whole message. But you tell them where you are. You need to have as accurate a location as possible. Maybe you wrote down an address, a landmark, something like that. And then you tell them what do you have and what do you need. We have a 35-year-old male. He's not speaking, but he is breathing. You need a medical team out here. And then, it'll go back and forth from there. Staging may ask you some more questions. They may just say, okay, we have somebody coming, whatever. So that's the 5 W's. If you do it in that order, and especially remember to wait to be acknowledged, so you know it's your turn to speak, that's a good thing. Net control is a concept where even if you're not in an emergency, if you're just having conversations with groups of people on the radio, it's a way to have a governor keep people from stepping all over each other. One person talks to net control at a time, and all the traffic goes through net control, not through each other. So net control might call, station A, and station A is then okay to speak with net control, and then net control calls station B, and so on. If station A and B want to talk to each other, net control can give them that permission, but then the control of the traffic goes back to net control. In a net, usually it's figured out ahead of time. It'll be an established time and person who will be the net control. In the situation where we were talking on the 5 W's, that staging guy was actually net control. Staging was controlling who was talking and who was waiting. So those two concepts are pretty universal in all radio communications. So we've got our protocols kind of set up there. We've got our radio. Now let's use it. Let's say you've got to report a situation. Well, obviously you're going to turn your radio on, and we kind of discussed a little about when you should have your radio on. Once you've got it you're on, you're going to set the channel. So you've got it on the right channel. You listen to make sure that channel is clear. And then when you have a clear channel and your message is firmly in mind, then you hold down the PTT. I wish I could see a screen, but I can't. You hold it in. You don't just click it. When you're about to use your radio to transmit, you have to push the PTT button and hold it in the whole time you're speaking, because that's just the way it works. And when you're done speaking, like when you get to the wait part, you let go. If you forget to let go, nobody can get through. You'll tie up that frequencies, and it's understandable at first when you get all excited and you've got a fire going and you're trying to report it in, and oh my God, I think there's a person over there, and that's a bad message anyway because it's rambling. But on top of it, you're sitting here after you're done holding the button in because you forgot. Let the button go. And then follow the 5 W's, and you'll probably do just fine. So now Patrick in a little bit has some other things to tell you, and he will, I'm sure, elaborate on some of these protocols. But before we get there, another thing we do with the radios outside of emergencies are nets or check-ins. And groups do this sometimes once a week or once a month, twice a month, whatever works for them. They're a way that we keep our equipment and our abilities tested and practiced, and so we're ready when we'll really need them. For example, let's say this is West Adams. The blue dots are your radio team members, and RadioNet is scheduled. So everybody is set to their pre-established channel, and they're ready to go at a pre-established time. Now anybody can be net control, and it's good to kind of swap it around so you get practice, because in an emergency you may be the first one on the radio, and so you may be the net control for a while until one of your leaders shows up. So anyway, net control calls out for people to check in one at a time, or they might use a roll call, Or they might let people just check in, but it's a little more chaotic that way. So they call in, they control the chaos by speaking to one person at a time. And it doesn't necessarily last very long, these check-ins. And then they sign off. And by doing that, you know your batteries are charged up, you know your radios are still working, that sort of thing. It's good for building muscle memory as well. So we mentioned relays. Transmitting radio to radio can be difficult if there are obstacles or interference in between you and the other station. Sometimes you may just be too far away for your radio to reach somebody else. A couple of things can help in that situation. Height and line of sight can always help you, and it sort of overcomes a low power radio. The higher up you can get, like on a building or a hilltop, something like that, can help you get through where if you stayed on the ground, you'd have more trouble. Sometimes just a few feet can make a difference. Also, in terms of radio interference, sometimes just moving over, even just inches, can make a difference. The other thing that can save you, though, is a relay. And what basically all that is, it's like the old telephone game. Let's say these two guys cannot reach each other, whether that's a hill or any other problem. They can't reach each other. But this guy up here can hear both of them. And so a message can get through by transmitting to a relay person and then back to your original target. So it takes a little practice to get used to actually doing it as a group, but it's a good thing to know how to do in practice, and it works. Now, a repeater that we mentioned before, Gmrs repeaters, for example, Frs Radios can't use repeaters, but Gmrs have 8 repeater frequencies that they can use. And the way the repeater works is similar to a relay, except for the fact that there's no human there, and it's pretty instantaneous. There's a little bit of a delay between when the repeater hears something and then repeats it, but it's pretty fast. And so it really extends your range. These guys now have no problem talking to each other, just like they were much closer. And it also extends the range all around. So people far away all over the place are able to talk to each other because the repeater helps extend that range. There's a Gmrs repeater that we actually use here in Battalion 18 in South Bureau. It's located over at Mid-City, and I'm sure people from West Adams, the west side over here, Hollywood, Baldwin Hills, they can all reach each other with Gmrs radios because of that repeater. So, like most things, practice is key. We practice a lot so that we can get these concepts fully embedded in our muscle memory. One real event won't be exactly the same as the real event before, but the fundamental radio procedures that we practice will come into play every time. So that's why neighborhood check-ins are great. They'll help you learn where your best reception is by, you try different places. You'll discover places that you maybe didn't even think of that are also, hey, wait, it works really good right here. Upstairs rather than downstairs, you might find works better. Outside rather than inside is almost always better. A handheld radio inside the car compared to outside the car, outside is always much better. Keep in mind the height and line of sight concept, because the higher you get, typically works better. It's almost like you're a human antenna, which, by the way, maybe try an antenna. Experiment. You'll find a number of magic spots you probably never thought of. There are also monthly South Bureau radio nets that allow you to participate on a wider playground. And you might find that your location allows radio contact with other areas nearby, outside your actual neighborhood. So all this is good to know when it really counts. Neighborhood drills are equally important. And it's there that you get to try your radio throughout the area. And you also get to practice the various deployment positions as well, be it staging or a response team. I didn't mention scribe because I was afraid I was going to run out of time, but you get to practice all those positions. So I do hope that you have a better idea of what all this radio stuff is about, how it'll serve you when nothing else is working. Even though I don't suggest that you throw all your cell phones away or anything. There's actually a radio app called Zello on a telephone, on a cell phone, and maybe Patrick will talk about that a little bit. It's a pretty fantastic thing. So you don't want to get rid of all that stuff, but there may be a time when you don't have it, and these battery-powered radios will help. And I do hope that you guys, after the NTP program is finished, that you'll sign up with your neighborhood radio team, because the radio teams need as many neighbors as they can get to move traffic efficiently across the neighborhoods. And so we encourage everybody to sign up with your local teams and practice with them for the time when you really need the skills. These FRS radios are great to start with. If you want to move up to more powerful ones, great. But they'll still work fine as backups and when you're not needing great range. And as you prepare for all this and practice, you may find that it's actually kind of fun too. And so I wanted to try something here that maybe will give you a better idea of how this works. And I can't tell what you're looking at, but I hope you can see this little radio over here. And I'm going to just get on the radio and say, South Bureau, this is WQVL 824, Malcolm Station. And hopefully he's paying attention. South Bureau. South Bureau, Malcolm Station.
Bureau. The operational time is approximately 14:47. Go ahead, unit coming in.
South Bureau, this is Malcolm Station, WQVL 824. We have a situation here. A lot of thirsty people, and our water supply is exhausted. Can you get the hydration unit over here to help out?
WQDL 824, repeat your message. The water supply, again, the water supply is in some kind of distress. Repeat.
Yes, our water supply is exhausted, and we need some help over here. You know where I am, but just in case you forgot, I'm at 1234 Standard Avenue, right where we started earlier today.
WQDL 824, we'll dispatch a water truck to your location, 1234 Standard Avenue.
Roger that, South Bureau. This is WQVL 824. Malcolm Station clear, standing by.
What's interesting to note is that Chin is not on his radio. He's actually using.
South Bureau, channel 16 clear but being monitored.
Yeah, go ahead, Patrick.
Chin is actually using what's called the Zello. We mentioned Zello a little bit ago, and let me turn my camera back on. Zello is a push-to-talk radio system on your phone, and what it actually does is we have what's called an RF gateway, radio frequency gateway, that allows us to use Zello to talk to people on radio. So Phil's on radio, Chin is out of range of his repeater, but he's got his phone with Zello, And if I key up, Phil, your radio's still on?
Yeah.
This is Cert Central.
Cert Central. Can you hear that?
So with only a very slight delay, I'm actually able to hear from Northeast LA, I'm able to hear the South Bureau repeater. And wherever Chin is, he's able to talk to Phil on that radio repeater. He could be in another part of the city, he could be in another part of the state, he could be around the world and still be able to talk to your local neighborhood. And so it's part of the process we're developing. We want to have repeaters in certain areas that need them especially, but also have these RF gateways so that as we develop our Zello network, we can actually stay in touch with our neighbors. Say you're on vacation and something happens, there's a power outage or a fire. If you happen to have the repeater channel turned on and something goes down, maybe people don't have your phone number, they don't have your email, they don't know how to reach you, but you're able to hear the communication that's going on in your neighborhood, and you're looped in, you're aware of what's going on and able to at least have that situational awareness.
Patrick,
Yes.
I see Central Bureau on here. I don't see South Bureau. Is it because I'm in Central Bureau? I don't get the South Bureau channel.
Correct. We don't enable the repeater channels unless you either are requested to be added to it or should be. So there's only a few people who are actually on the South Bureau repeater. It is a GMRS channel, so technically I should have identified my GMRS call sign when I used it, but we do want to maintain radio protocols. So if say we set up a ham repeater on here, say LAFD ACS1, only the people who have ham licenses should be part of that channel, and all of them need to realize it is as if you were using an actual radio. You would need to identify yourself correctly. Phil, back to you.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it for me. If anybody has any questions or suggestions or whatever.
Awesome. Thanks, fellows. I'm going to drop the spotlight and put us back into gallery view. So folks, there you have it. Feel free to toggle your screen back to gallery if you like to see everybody on the call. We're going to go into some Q&A, but first I want to just level set with everybody. Obviously, this is a lot of information. A lot of it's going to be new. A lot of it's going to be technical. So we do have some trainings coming up. And I think the best way to break it down is that we are going to be exploring a couple different things, pathways of learning. So there's obviously learning the lingo and even getting comfortable with the waiting and the talking and all the different sort of protocols of how to use radio and how to communicate on that. So that's one set of trainings. We have sets of trainings with actually get into the equipment and the usage of the different technical tools. You'll be able to borrow from our pool of supplies that we've accumulated in the area before you even go out and purchase your own radio. So obviously we'll have step-by-step plan for how to make that determination when you get to that stage. So Patrick, maybe I'll hand it over to you to just give us a quick outline of some of the dates, some of the kinds of trainings, so that folks who are coming in at different levels of newness or expertise know what's best for them and what the best starting point is.
Yeah, absolutely. So we mentioned Zello, and it's really because we used to meet in person to do the radio training, and now that's not possible. Zello has become a great tool for us to use in that it develops the muscle memory of the push-to-talk system. And some of the some ham operators will be the first to point out that it does require you to have internet access. That is 100% true. If your cell phone signal's down, cell towers are down, or your home Wi-Fi doesn't work, you're not going to be able to get on the Zello network. However, for training purposes, this is an amazing tool because, as you can see on my phone, I've got a giant push to talk button in the center of my screen, and I need to remember to push and hold the talk button before I start talking. Otherwise, I won't communicate. Also, you can get an attachment for your phone. This is a Bluetooth speaker mic, and so I can clip this to my uniform and have my cell phone in my pocket and then reach up and hit the push to talk button on here and still be able to communicate while my cell phone's in my pocket. It also does have a headphone clip on here, or headphone port, so that I can attach an earpiece. And what that allows me to do is have this earpiece in, and if I'm in a noisy environment, I can still hear the radio. I can tell you from experience doing Rose Parade and several other first aid stations that when it's loud out, when there's stuff going on, it's very difficult to hear the radio. And having that earpiece in makes it actually a viable communication tool. So if you look at some Frs radios, they also have a antenna port, or I'm sorry, not antenna port, a headphone jack on here, so that you can get the headphones for these Frs radios, and ham radios for sure have them as well. Every month we do a radio check-in. I'm sorry, every week we do a radio check-in every Monday night at 7:15 p.m. using Zello. If you're interested, if you don't have it yet, I'm going to drop the link shortly. You can sign up at join.ntp-la.org and sign up and request a Zello call sign. We typically get them out within the day, or within at least 72 hours. We'll get you on board and send you a welcome email telling you what your call sign is and initial password, as well as links to the step-by-step guides we developed so that you can figure out how to use it. In addition to that, this month on May 20th, we are running a training on how to use Zello. We'll demo how to use it on Android as well as on iOS. And that's going to be Thursday, May 20th from 7 to 9 p.m. And I'll drop the link on how to sign up for that as well. Every fourth Wednesday of the month, we do radio training using Zello and Zoom. What we do is we actually, we give a brief recap of how to do radio protocol, and then we break you up into rooms with facilitator. The facilitator will tell you a story, and your team will be progressing through the story and having to make decisions, use teamwork and use cert skills, but also there is a heavy radio component. So somebody will be assigned the duty of being the radio operator, and using Zello, they'll communicate with the staging area or someone else on the radio. And we do emphasize using this proper radio protocol, following those 5 W's, the who are you trying to reach, who are you, where are you, what do you have, and what do you need? And the facilitator is there to help you out. So if you start to stumble or you're trying to figure out how to put the message together, they're there to help you out and get that smoothed out. It's much better to figure out how to use the radio in training than it is after the earthquake, when you're being handed a piece of equipment you've never seen before and then being told you should know how to use this. Good luck. So the upcoming trainings are every Monday at 7:15 p.m. That's the radio check-in, and that's just so that we get used to using it and know that it works. And if you have any problems getting in and communicating, you can reach out to us and we'll get that worked out for you. Every fourth Wednesday of the month is our radio training, and then we actually use it and actually do send messages on it. And then this month, Thursday, May 20th from 7 to 9 p.m. is our Zello training, and that's strategically set up so that it is right before the radio training, the fourth Wednesday, so that we can make sure you get in, know how to use it, and then get you on the regular monthly training. Additionally, our third Wednesday of the month continuing education training is going to be on radios this month. I maybe should not be stacking all the radio stuff at once, because I'm being told it's confusing which radio training is which day. But what we have is we have Gordon West as our guest speaker. Gordon West literally wrote the book on ham radio training. He sells a book that is pretty much, at least from my experience, one of the better books out there on how to pass the ham license exam. And there are 3 different levels. There's the technician license, which is the basic license to get in and be able to use a ham radio legally. Then the general license, and then the amateur extra license. And he has books on all of those. What he's going to be talking about is using radios for disaster communications. And he's going to actually play recordings of ham radio operators reporting in disasters that no one has seen before. Some of you remember when Katrina broke the levees, it was actually ham radio operators in that area who reported that the levees were overflowing. And since the infrastructure had been so badly damaged by the hurricane, normal communications, cell phones, everything else was down, and ham radios were the only thing that worked. And he has plenty of examples of those kinds of communications. That night also, we're going to go over the NTP step-by-step guide that we wrote on how to do disaster radio communication. We walk you through exactly what you're going to be doing, getting to the staging area, setting out the radios, which radios are going to be labeled what, which ones you turn on, which ones you're going to hand out, and what they're going to be doing when they're going out and using these radios. That is Wednesday, is next Wednesday, or this upcoming Wednesday, May 19th from 7 to 9 p.m. And again, I'm going to put the link in the chat. So if you want to sign up for any of these trainings, go to training.ntp-la.org. You can also see our calendar at calendar.ntp-la.org. And you can add, if you have a Google Gmail or Google Calendar, you can add this to your calendar, so you can be notified about the upcoming events that we do. That also includes the NTP calendar, so events like this training and the other ones that are going out throughout the city, that'll all be on that calendar. And then again, join.ntp-la.org is how you sign up for the trainings that, I'm sorry, sign up for our email list, as well as get a call sign and sign up for the LAFD Cert Zello. Please don't download the app and just create an account. It is a private network. If you do that, you won't be able to communicate with us. You do need to request an account from us. We'll provision it for you and then send you out a welcome email and a text message on how to connect into our system. John?
Awesome. Thank you, Patrick. Yeah, so we'll be sending out another follow-up email with some of that information broken down in case you didn't catch all of it. The links are there for you to check out right now. And we also have one special event that we're doing as Prepare West Adams coming up for the 29th. No, Lise, what date is that one? What are we calling coffee, donuts and radio, right?
Yes, it's on a Saturday 29, May 29.
Okay, May 29th.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Yeah, Lise, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we will have a live event, like a pop-up event where you can come and ask us questions about radio practice. We will show you how to use it and maybe, practice situational awareness. Yeah, we will help you face-to-face, which can be a little bit easier for people who never held a radio before.
Exactly. Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun because what we're going to be doing is getting people out and about, socially distanced, of course, and outdoors. So if you've been following the CDC guidelines, it's a very safe way to conduct activities. We are going to be spreading ourselves out. That's part of the activity and part of the fun. Just for about 2 hours, people will be getting actual physical radios. They'll be learning how to use them. And we're going to be doing little ID games around, like spotting license plates and that kind of thing. So it should be a really cool hands-on activity, a great way to meet some of the neighbors that you've gotten to know through these classes. And ultimately, for those of us who learn the best by actually holding radios, pressing the buttons, making mistakes, trying things out, I think that's going to be a great way to really pick up the skills. I know I personally need that a lot when I'm learning something new and something technical. So very excited to see all of us out there. And I think, why don't we go into final Q&A?
I do want to also note that we are going to be planning a drill after these 6 modules are over. It will be a radio communication drill. So you're going to be going to your CERT staging area, which we'll let you know about. You're going to be getting issued radios, and then we're going to be walking the damage assessment routes and using the radios and following the step-by-step guide that we're going to be outlining on the 19th. We'll give you more information once we get the dates and locations all set up, but John and Lise will get that information out to you.
Awesome. All right, folks, so we got a few minutes left. If we want to fire off any questions to the team here, this is your opportunity to do that. Freddie, I see you got your hand.
Yes, I just wanted to compliment Phil on a really good presentation on the use of these handheld radios. I also have a handheld. Let's see. I also have a handheld that I've had about a year now, and I think what's important, and I'm sure Phil would co-sign this, is to, when you purchase or order your radio, to perhaps purchase and order additional batteries. So, because I've had that happen to me several times, where we were in our morning the Breakfast Club check-ins, radio check-ins, and my battery died on me. So Phil and Chin both helped me to obtain an additional battery. Now I have 2 additional batteries. So I think it's important for everyone with a single handheld use radio that's utilizing them to actually have a backup battery. So thanks, Phil. I did receive my batteries yesterday, by the way. Thank you so much, man.
All right, glad you got it. And yeah, very good advice there. Have some spares.
Good deal. Thank you.
Cindy, hey.
A lot of these, hold on that. A lot of these FRS radios, they do come with rechargeable battery packs in them. And what you'll notice is that as you pull them out, they will actually take double or AAA batteries, so that you can actually go from the rechargeable to having regular alkaline batteries in here. And that we do recommend that you don't leave alkaline batteries in anything, because they will corrode and will possibly destroy the equipment. So always keep your batteries out spare. It's best to keep them in their original container. So if you buy like an 8-pack or something, just keep that 8-pack separate and have them handy, so that if you do need to use the radios and your rechargeable's dead, you can switch over to those batteries.
Okay, good. Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate that. Listen, my radio does not utilize the 9-volt batteries. So mine comes with a battery pack. It's a rechargeable pack, but it's like this, and you cannot put any AA's in there. So, you know, the additional battery pack is worth it to me.
Got it. Cindy, I saw you had your hand up earlier.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Phil and Lisa and Patrick, for the presentation. I missed something on when would you ever use your GMRS call sign on Zello? That was unclear to me. You would never use that on Zello.
No, so it's a completely different radio system.
Okay.
So yeah, if you have a ham license or GMRS license, you don't use your GMRS or ham, and you wouldn't use, if you have a ham license and a GMRS license, you wouldn't use the other call sign for that either. So okay, we assign you a call sign when you sign up for Zello, and that's the call signs that we're going to use.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's clear. Thank you.
I have a question.
Valerie. Oh,
okay.
Yeah, we're going to give it to Valerie first. I think she had her hand up. Carolyn, if you want to get in the queue, feel free to raise your hand on Zoom.
Okay.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a point that when you do speak on your radio, to keep it short and to the point, because other people may be wanting to communicate. Also, you don't need to use any fancy codes or over and out or Roger. Just speak in plain English, clearly, spell things if necessary, using the, like alpha, whatever, zebra, those sorts of things. Just try to be clear. I just wanted to get that out. Hopefully people will pick up that and much more in these trainings.
What you're referring to is the NATO or ITU phonetic alphabet. And it's something good to learn. What you can do is you can print it out, laminate it, have that with you. But it's when you're spelling out something, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and it's designed to make it so that everyone can understand the letters you're speaking. If you're trying to come up with words like umbrella or microphone, when you're spelling out the alphabet, it slows you down at the same time as also maybe those words aren't exactly clear. And you could say a word that sounds like another word and it can confuse people. LAPD or police have their own phonetic alphabet as well. You can always tell a cop when they start reading something out letter by letter on the radio. But we prefer the ITU, but whatever works, works.
Well, what Valerie was also talking about is various organizations have their own lingo other than spelling words, like 10-4 and all of that kind of stuff. But when the agencies come together, they use normal language. They don't use code words like that.
Plain English.
We're going to go Kevin, Carolyn, and then Bryant.
Yeah, I was just going to mention something to Freddie that I have the same radio he has, and they do make a AA component that you put AA's in, and then it snaps into that. So if you find yourself in a situation where you can't recharge, having one of these, you can usually keep, like he said, keep spare AA's in your go bag, and this is just another way to keep that radio working on and on and on. And it's on Amazon. And I can, Freddie, I can shoot you the link to that.
Thanks, Kevin. Carolyn.
Okay, two things. Kevin, is that a Baofeng radio battery that you're looking at?
Yes, this is just like the similar Baofeng connector that charging
extended battery.
This is a rechargeable one. You see, it's a bit bigger than the one that comes stock. So this one lasts about 3 times longer. And then this container, as you see, it's the same shape, but it has places to put AA batteries in, plus a dummy, because AA alkaline batteries have much more power than rechargeable batteries. So the dummy matches the voltage on.
Next question was for Patrick. When you talk on Zello to ACS line, your ham call sign, use the Zello call sign?
In that case, you would actually use the ham call sign because you're transmitting on a ham radio. You're transmitting on your ham license.
Got it. We're going to go to.
Yeah, so sorry, that is a correction. If you're speaking to other people on Zello, then you're going to be using your Zello call sign. If you're on a special repeater channel for GMRS or for ham, you're going to use the correct license, and that's your license call sign, either GMRS or ham.
Got it.
Very cool. Bryant, did you want to ask a question?
Yes, I was very interested in downloading the Zello's app, but I heard Patrick, he said, wait for it's better to be invited. So if you can do that for me, because I was getting ready to download the app to my phone. I think that's pretty cool to have to be able to communicate through Zello on your cell phone. I just like technology. I just like the gadget guy. So if you can, is that correct, Patrick? To wait till you guys send me an invite, because if I download it myself, you said I wouldn't be able to communicate with anybody?
You can download it, just don't create an account, but just go ahead and sign up on the join.ntp-la.org or re-sign up if you've already, and we'll send you the link and the information on how to get it all set up. We'll give you a step-by-step guide.
Okay.
Sherry.
I just wanted to know the training on May 20th on Zello. Will that be offered at any other time?
We'll probably run it fairly regularly. I don't have any others scheduled yet, but we'll try to.
All right. Do folks have any other questions? I will say that we have a few folks on this call that I think are part of that weekly radio check-in, and there might even be more than one. Lisa or Freddie, maybe you can say just a quick word about how those have been going, how long you've been doing them for, what you cover, how long they run for each week, anything like that.
Yeah, I can talk about it. So we have in West Adam, we're several people with we're Cert and NTP. and we connect every Monday at 7:30, and we give situational awareness on FRS channel 3. So if you guys have a FRS radio and wanted to listen or participate, please go ahead. And we're about 4 or 5 people right now, checking every Monday at 7:30.
And you're kind of spread throughout West Adams, right? So you're sort of covering all the bases.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we have west side of West Adams to the east side, and yeah, a little bit everywhere. We can hear each other. Is really neat.
Yeah, so I concur with our area leader. That would be Lise, and we have 4 areas within the West Adams corridor that we're utilizing, and so we have actually now 5 representatives because Brian is joining us, and so is James Tarrant, and so we are expanding, we are evolving, and that's a really wonderful thing. We're doing some wonderful things in West Adams, and so Lise, thank you so much for your leadership because you're doing a wonderful job with coordinating this West Adams part of Battalion 18, the South Bureau. So thank you, and thank you again for your leadership, and you're just awesome.
Thank you.
There we go.
No, I'm gonna second that and just give a quick shout out to the website that Lise built for us, preparewesadams.org. It may be how some of you found this training today. It's got a lot of great resources that Lise has been updating with, not just the links to these trainings and the schedule for these trainings, but also just general good information that we've been amassing over the months during these classes, outside of these classes. It's a great one-stop shop. So take a look at that website. And yeah, I think what we're alluding to here, Freddie, is that West Adams really is becoming a emergency response force in and of itself. Some of the folks who you've heard speak today in the neighborhood, not only do they work on radio, of course, but they're also setting up mapping exercises to help us really get out in the neighborhood, identify potential hazards to be aware of when things go south during the next big earthquake or any other sort of disaster where business as usual gets disrupted, right? The things to look out for, the places to go. And very soon, these mapping exercise results are going to be circulated within the community for those of us who are joining neighborhood council meetings to be able to put their input into, to ask questions, to bring up things that they may be aware of in their particular part of the neighborhood. So this is really what we're talking about, right? Transitioning as we come out of lockdown. Next month the state's going to be opening up, right? And we're going to have our 5th training right around that time, which transitions us very intentionally into the real world, getting together, meeting each other, and figuring out the actual staging areas where our different teams are going to be meeting up and conducting search and rescue and general upkeep of our supplies. We just funded through the neighborhood council a $5,000 grant to purchase supplies for 2 staging areas in West Adams. And so all of that's going to start to roll out in a very real way. So please stay tuned for that. And I guess the very last thing I'll say is that if you do like the work that we're talking about, that we're working on here, please do submit for a ballot. It's a little bit of an extra step, I know, because this year there's nowhere to go in person. You do have to do it online, but in some cases it makes it easier. All you have to do is go on the website and request a ballot by this Tuesday, and then by the following Tuesday, make sure you postmark it. There are folks running who are very much really trying to see this through and wanting to see emergency preparedness become a focus of the neighborhood council. It's not a focus of most neighborhood councils, but we think that that's an oversight. We think it's actually a really important thing. As much as all the other issues we care about, this is something that brings us together really in a really specific way. And it's going to require all of us working together if we want our plans to succeed when things do get difficult. So yes, somebody direct messaged me. We received funding. I think it was for 2. It was for $5,000, and I think one staging area is about 2,600. So we're just shy of that.
100, but yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And we'll be able to re-up that in the next fiscal year, very likely. But certainly this gets us on the path to having the 2 areas. And West Adams really does need that, right? That trapezoid shape of ours. We are a pretty densely populated neighborhood. Having one and quite a large plot of land here, so just having one staging area really isn't going to be enough. We do need those 2. So
Staging
It
area will
is
cover about a mile radius. And if you're
right.
2.7 miles from edge to edge, you're going to need at least 2, maybe 3. Staging
Okay.
areas.
Got it. Okay.
But we do
Well,
have a good lead on the first staging area, and we're going to be working on getting that done on the behind the scenes, so that come August we can hopefully have a drill out of that staging area.
right on. Yes. This is a really cool conversation that's evolving. I joined the last mapping conversation, and I've heard some of the challenges that we're facing in identifying that third area. So it'll be exciting to see what we do come up with, and then in August really get out there physically and walk the neighborhood together. So folks, come back around next month. We're going to be jumping into class 5 of 6. The topic is RYLAN, which is an acronym: Ready Your LA Neighborhood. And it's going to be really getting us into the mindset of what can we do block by block to organize ourselves and really get out there and start making change. So I've been talking a lot. Is there anything else that folks want to bring in? Any other questions, logistics questions, anything like that? If not, Patrick and I will make sure to get you all the summary of the upcoming event dates. And we will eventually get you the recording of last month's search and rescue. I know that Chin has been working on producing an expanded version of that, which is why we've been a little bit late on getting you that. But once it's ready, you'll see it on our YouTube channel. We'll get it in the email, and it'll be a great evergreen property to go back to review search and rescue that hopefully stays relevant for a very long time. So I guess that's it for us today, folks. Thanks for coming out. Really, really great to see everybody. And we'll see you next month. Awesome.